My name is Justin Peele. As Karen said, I was born and raised here in North Carolina. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, and I've kind of gone full circle. I'm actually serving a domestic tour now. Uh, and we have a small office in Greensboro, North Carolina, right here, a little resident office, and so that's where I'll be located the next couple of years. So that's where I wanted to end up out of Afghanistan. I was lobbying for that position, and I just went there a little bit earlier than expected. So you can imagine. A couple disclaimers. One thing, it's really important. I've been asked by a lot of people. I do not speak on behalf of the U.S. government, right? These photographs are my photographs. I actually took most of these, or my friends took most of these and passed them to me. Most of these photographs, they're not anywhere else. They're not going to be published in a magazine or anything of that nature. Just know that these are my opinions, my thoughts, based on my experiences, and in no way, shape, or form am I speaking on behalf of the U.S. Department of State or the federal government or the current administration or anybody. All right. Being truthful, there was a lot of controversy with trying to do a public speaking event like this. There's a lot of pushback initially. Initially, I think the answer was a hard no. It's just don't do it. It's very controversial. And then I kind of smoothed things over. I eventually did get permission, and it has been approved for me to speak here. They have public affairs. The State Department of Public Affairs has asked that I not speak about the withdrawal itself, right, and the politics surrounding that. Did we do a good job or a bad job? Was it right? Was it wrong? And I'll be speaking more on my personal experiences. So that's just kind of just a disclaimer there. Please don't. I don't know. You just give me a lot of trouble, right? If you start publishing, yeah, he said Biden did this. Like, no, I'm not going to go there. All right. So, all right. So, I was born and raised here, North Carolina. I went to App State University. Graduated in 2004. Most people in my line of work are former military or law enforcement, but I joined the Peace Corps. Right? I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Peace Corps, but finished school in 2004. My dad was in the Navy. He served in Vietnam. He kind of taught. He said, maybe not. This isn't a good time to join the military. It is what it is. I joined the Peace Corps. Had a great time. I served in Paraguay, South America as a health volunteer from 2006 to 2009. So I went to a rural community. I learned Guarani, which is the indigenous language of Paraguay. They have two languages, Spanish and Guarani. And in this community, I was focusing on doing parasite prevention, dental health, a lot of HIV/AIDS education in schools, things of that nature. It's a place that's very special to me to this day, and I went back repeatedly over the years. Just prior to Afghanistan, I served a tour in Paraguay as a diplomatic security special agent for 2 years. So I spent over 5 years of my life in Paraguay. After Peace Corps, I became a Rotary World Peace Fellow. Right, so the Siler City Rotary Club sponsored me, and I won this fellowship that allowed me to go down to Argentina, where I spent 2 years working on a master's degree in international relations. So anytime Rotary or any Rotarian, if they ask me to do something or can I do this or that, I always go, right? I mean, Rotary really took care of me for this couple of years, and they've flown me to Bangkok, they've flown me to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Thailand, and I always try to give back. A fantastic experience down there in Argentina, and that segued into getting my job, beginning my career, which is something I had always dreamed of, something I was very excited to do. When I was a younger Peace Corps volunteer, there's a security official at the embassies, right? Every embassy has a security official, and this person came over and gave our security briefing. Places you could go, things you should avoid, the safety and security in general. And this person he was in the Foreign Service, but he was also a law enforcement officer, right? He said he had a black diplomatic passport, but he also had a badge and a gun. And I thought that seemed like the coolest job ever. I was interested in the Foreign Service before. I knew about the generalist positions, consular and management, and things of that nature. But hearing that briefing made me think, oh man, like, who are you? Tell me about this job. And so that's after grad school. That's when I began, applied, and it took 2 years with the security clearance and this and that. But I was hired on as a Foreign Service Specialist. So Foreign Service Specialists are your special agents. I'm a diplomatic security special agent, a federal law enforcement officer, but I do have black passports, right, as a diplomat. So specialists will also be your diplomatic couriers, your regional medical doctors, your security engineers, things of that nature. So that's a little bit about how I fell into the position. Diplomatic security is a bureau within the State Department. We're the security and law enforcement arm of the State Department. That's what we do. We protect people, property, and information. That's the big three. Every embassy, consulate overseas, we have diplomatic security special agents managing the security portfolios there. Then domestically, we protect the Secretary of State and any visiting foreign dignitary below the head of state level. So people oftentimes confuse us with the Secret Service, that's fine, right? So Secret Service, they're doing a lot of counterfeit, like monetary fraud investigations, and they protect heads of state, right? They protect the president, they're protecting heads of state that come to visit. We pick up the Secretary of State and then any other visiting dignitary. The last detail that I was on was the Iraqi deputy foreign minister. He came in, we'd have a motorcade, we'd drive him around. We do people like the Dalai Lama, we do Prince Harry, all these people that come into our country, DS agents are with them. Right? We take them to their meetings. If they go shopping at Tyson's Corner at the mall, we take them, whatever they want to do, we make it happen, right? It's the same overseas. We're responsible for the lives of all the Americans everywhere, also our facilities, the embassy itself, along with all the residences that we have. So overseas, we're managing bodyguards, we're our local guard force. We work a lot with the local police, have all these relationships, so it's more security management, portfolio management overseas. We also do passport and visa fraud investigations, which is what I'll be doing in Greensboro. Passport visa fraud investigations, and so it's more of a traditional law enforcement position. So that makes sense. We kind of do a lot of things, kind of all over the place. But the main idea is that most people have not heard of DS, of diplomatic security. When we're driving around DC in our suits and ties and black Chevy Suburbans, people are saying, "Oh man, the Secret Service," and we're causing traffic jams. Like, the Secret Service. And it's sort of like when you're making people mad, it's great. Like, yeah, Secret Service, man. Yeah. They tell you, yeah. But sometimes it's nice to recognize when things go well. It's good for people to distinguish between those two. But so the security and law enforcement arm of the State Department is what we do. Okay. So this is actually 10 years ago. I've been an agent for 10 years now, and it's really flown by. It's been quite a journey, and it's taken me all over the world. This is one of my earliest photographs that I was able to find. That's Secretary Kerry's. I was on Secretary Kerry, John Kerry's detail, and obviously we're in Korea. He fly around on his plane, and we had touched down in Korea, and the way John Kerry was traveling, I mean, sometimes you weren't even sure what country you were in, right? If you're on the plane team, it could get really confusing. You're just going to different countries day after day after day, week after week. But that was my introduction to DS. I shot with John Kerry, and I went to Bamako, Mali for 6 months. So I was paying rent in Washington, D.C., and then I left for half a year to Mali. And, I don't know what happened to my apartment. I just kept paying rent. I was like the best tenant ever. And then the same with Kerry. I'd be gone for a week. I'd be expecting to come back, and then we'd fly somewhere else for another 2 weeks, and I come back, and all of a sudden, it's been 45 days. Like, we gotta. I wonder how the grass is doing back home. But a lot of unique experiences. A lot of taking people into private meetings, right? Sometimes doing protection, as we call it, just doing protective details. It can be very, I was going to say voyeuristic, right? I was traveling with John Kerry on his work, but we're also with him at home. Over Christmas, we're up at his home in Beacon Hill in Boston, and he's just having Thanksgiving dinner. Some things when I was a little bit younger, it was more exciting, right? But these days, I'm kind of like, how about I just spend Thanksgiving with my family, right? But you see people in their personal life and their private life, which I think is very interesting as far as public officials goes. Okay. Any questions? initially? All right. I've got a variety of photographs from over the years that kind of resonated with me of some of the things that I've done. So I did a domestic tour. My second tour, I joined our tactical unit. I spent 3 years. It's basically a SWAT team. It's a special mission unit. It's called the Office of Mobile Security Deployments. What we do is anytime there's an embassy in times of crisis, we deploy out. You're on a 5-hour time leash, and if there's a coup or an embassy needs to be evacuated, you get on a plane with your team, maybe 4 to 6 people, and you go out and help evacuate people, or just work with the local staff, helping to train them up, things of that nature. So I did that for 3 years. Then I went to Sudan. I spent 2 years of my life at our embassy in Khartoum, Sudan. I did dozens of protective missions to Darfur, the 5 Darfur states. This is the common thing. We'd go out there. This was the thing. We had some visitors from Washington, D.C. out in Darfur. It was World Refugee Day. A lot of UN-sponsored events. And we had the Pakistani peacekeepers with us, right? PACBAT. There's a Pakistani battalion out there in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert. And we would take helicopter rides out there. Truly in the middle of nowhere, but they would help fall into our motorcade and keep us safe. And we would use their vehicles and things of that nature. So this is what we would do. We're kind of hanging out, visiting with some of the Darfuris. They're selling their goods. There was a big festival that was held. And I don't know where my protectees were at this moment when I was taking a picture, but I assumed that was like they were doing something. But you just have people would come in from Washington, D.C., right? And they had their plan. We want to do this, this, and that. And my job would be to make it happen. Well, if we couldn't make it happen, I'll tell them why. Why it's unsafe to go to this neighborhood. We're going to cancel that leg. Right? We're not even going to that city. Right? We can do this, this, and that, and we can do this, but you have to stay in the vehicles, for example. Right? So we're always trying to mitigate any threats. We're working a lot with whatever information that we have, any contacts that we have in the area. Right? These are all constantly changing, but so that's kind of neat. Out in the middle of nowhere. Cheers, guys. I know. Pakistani peacekeepers in Sudan. It's hot. It's very hot. Yeah. Yeah, it's been 2 years out there. It was good. I mean, I learned a lot at the time. This is my 3rd tour, and it's interesting. Just growing up, I think we're all familiar with the the genocide, the Darfur genocide, and a lot of the conflict when I was a lot younger in the 90s. And it was interesting to see how some things work out or maybe they don't work out, right? A lot of the refugees, maybe they've been there for decades at this point. You have a lot of children that were born into refugee camps, and they're still there, and these people are 25 years old, for example. But made a lot of good relationships, met a lot of really wonderful people, which that, for me, is the most important piece. And I think that's one of the main things that I was going to talk about today. And even with the evacuation from Afghanistan, right? Just the people you meet, the relationships you make, and just the incredible things that you can do based on those friendships and those relationships. So I'm in touch with a lot of people from Sudan, from the embassy. My nurse, right? The nurse from the embassy is actually working in the U.S. now with the State Department. She came in. She actually went to Afghanistan to go there for a 3-year contract and was evacuated. So it's really interesting how you bump into people from time to time. It's a small world, and I think this job can really make it seem even smaller at times. But I would think twice about going back there for 2 more years, though. It was good, but 2 years is a long time, and a lot of moments like this, you're kind of out there. Armored vehicles only at that post. Security agents would have our own take-home vehicle that would drive around. The rest of the embassy community would be in motor pool. We had a bunch of drivers, and you basically call a taxi, and they go pick you up. So no children allowed, no dependents, and armored vehicles only. So it can be kind of a rocky lifestyle in some ways. It took me 4 flights to get back here to North Carolina out of there, which is also something I prefer not to do these days. Right? It's almost 40 hours of travel, and 2 flights just to get off the continent. So there's a lot of humanity in these photographs and these memories that I have. Right? There's always a lot of children. Right? You can go and play soccer with these guys just like anybody else, no matter where they are, right? Regardless if there was like a firefight, the night before. Kids are kids, and I think that was always really touching. Um, yeah. This is Ahab Baki. He was one of our bodyguards. We had 25 bodyguards out there. When I would put together a protective mission, I would decide how many bodyguards I need to take with me, right? These are people that I worked with, that I trained. We would send them to Washington, D.C. for additional training. We took really good care of these people. And that's also just another memorable picture of me. We're out in the middle of nowhere. I'm pretty sure these were Rwandan peacekeepers. Based on the location, we'd have different peacekeepers from different countries. So we had Rwandans, if this is North Darfur or East Darfur, I don't recall. But also, this photograph, we had a fixed-winged from Khartoum to Darfur, and then multiple helicopter rides just to get to the most remote areas. And so it's kind of some interesting work out there. They were just touching base with some of the communities out there, seeing how they were doing. Were the raids still happening from rival tribes, right? Some places are still kind of untouched by the internet and technology, and you really don't know what's happening until you go there and see and talk to the people. But Ahab, he was a good friend of mine. We spent a lot of time together, traveled around a lot, spent a lot of time in tents, It was kind of austere living. We also manage a Marine security guard detachment, right? All of our embassies have Marines. They protect our embassies. It's called the program for those in the Marine Corps, right? This is the detachment that we had in Khartoum. Kind of waited for a nice moment there with the sun setting, and just all of us together. Just something else we do a couple of times a week. We're always doing drills. We're always responding to any threats that may happen. My time in Khartoum, we had some ISIS attacks, and we do react to Marines as needed. These gentlemen live on the embassy compound. Based on the high threat nature of Sudan, they actually have their own housing facility just outside the embassy, but within the wall. So the reaction time is very quick, right? You hit the alarm, like these young guys just they put on their kit and run out. But as years go by, as we get older, it's also special for me, the relationship that I made with these people, right? The time investment that I put in with them. Some of them are in college now. Some of them I've written job recommendations for. A couple are cops, right? It's just kind of neat. Some guys are going to be in the Marine Corps, right, forever. They love it, they can't get enough. And so it's just a special memory from a special time. They were. The reality is that we have what we do is we have concentric rings of security, right? We got people out in the streets. We've got the local guard. Then you have the hard line. Then you have the Marine and post one. It goes right into the embassy, and then we have a safe haven inside. Right? That's how all these things are built up. So the reality is that for the people, our local staff out in the streets, it's most dangerous for them, right? These are the people that first confront the threat, that would be first signaling the threat or responding. You can imagine somebody at a checkpoint, right? How do you know if there's going to be an explosion at a checkpoint? Right? Well, the dude at the checkpoint is probably going to, right? He's probably going to be the first person to eat that, so to speak. We had some attacks. We had one gentleman who was it was an ISIS-inspired attack. Somebody walked up and stabbed him repeatedly. Right? There's certain things that the reaction time, it's just we're kind of behind the eight ball in that regard, right? But other local guard responded, apprehended the person, and he went to prison. There was a trial. It went on and on. But sometimes things do happen, I guess. That's what I was getting at. Ideally, we'll have intelligence, we'll have reporting, and we can kind of thwart it before it happens, right? If there's a significant threat, we could shut down the embassy even, right? Maybe we'll all stay home, or maybe we'll cancel a trip. Historically, around 9/11, all of our embassies would be on high alert in that regard, right? Just based on the nature of that. So these are some things that we can do to help mitigate that. And this is Stephen Yim, another Marine up here, up on you got the Nile right here in the background in the rainy season, right? All this is just embassy land that would flood in. The river would flood into the embassy. And there's a gentleman here, he went on, he's in college. He did his time with the Marine Corps. He went to a few other posts and then said he wanted to have some normalcy in his life. And so he's going to school and living his best life. But this one else, we're in contact a lot. And yeah, you always have those moments you spent together. Okay, it's us at the range. This is some of our bodyguards, right? This is me with another gentleman here. We're the two special agents that were at that embassy. The assistant regional security officers is who we're called. So we're responsible for all of these people. In Sudan, I was managing about 400 people with the local guard, the armed local guard, the bodyguards, investigators. There's a whole slew of people out there that are working 24/7, right? That's why there's so many. They're working 24/7 at the embassy, on the perimeter, and our residences, right? We always have people around there with the high walls and the concertina wire, all of that. But we're responsible for their training, right? We teach them to shoot. If we get new equipment, we pass it on to them. We train them on that. We qualify with them. We train them on running a diamond, a protective detail formation, right? All the stuff that we're trained with, we pass on to them, right? So they would drive around with the ambassador, the charge in Sudan, and they were with him 7 days a week. And so they're just out at the range, and we took a moment and snapped a picture. One of those moments, it's easy to never take pictures like that, but I'm always happy that we sat down and I did that. Yeah. Was that? Absolutely. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I hired two. During my stay, I hired two people. Yeah, we open it up. Some people, will leave the country or, for whatever reason. We have an opening, we hire somebody, and we open it up. We'll interview them. I would like to take them to the range too. Actually, I was really big on we're going to go work out, and we're going to go to the range, and ideally there's a strong baseline there to build up. I was never a fan of just somebody that wanted to be a bodyguard. So a lot of times we were poaching people from the UN, people that had other international organizations that had other training. We kind of poached them from other embassies. I think it's fair to say that working for the U.S. embassies in a lot of these countries is the best job in town, right? There's a lot of benefits. We really take care of a lot of people. And so definitely spend a lot of time in hiring the right person. And most importantly, probably a good fit, right, for the bodyguard team. If we're going to have to go fly to Darfur together and kind of live on top of each other in tents or something, we really have to get along, which in the end might be one of the most important pieces, right? Just those relationships. And if we don't get along, oh man, that's no fun. Yeah. Random thought. One of the gentlemen that I hired, I remember reading him the question I had written. I said, being a bodyguard, you're going to have to spend some time away from your family and your wife. We take trips to Darfur. You might be gone for a week, 2 weeks. And would you be comfortable doing that? Sometimes last minute. And he looked at me and said, "Sir, I campaigned in Darfur for 8 years." And I always remember that. Yeah, so here I was thinking, like, you might have to work some weekends, man. This would be kind of rough. And this guy had been on Darfur for years, right? Just that old school military campaigning. You just leave. There's no R&Rs. Like I don't know what they were eating out there, but 8 years is a long time to be away. This is the MSD team that came out at the range. I always like this, right, from the Quran. Teach your boys shooting, swimming, and riding horses. So that it says, learn your boys shooting, swimming, and riding horses. But that was a quote from the Quran. It's almost, I don't know what to call it, old school masculinity, maybe. Just teach your kids how to ride horses and how to shoot guns and how to swim, right? These basic survival skills. which in a lot of places around the world, right, it really rings true, right? It is maybe that there's not a police apparatus or security apparatus that's going to come help you in time of need, right? Your family does that. Your family is going to protect the compound in that regard. This is an MSD team that came out when I had to qualify 130 armed guards on the range. That's a lot of people to have on the range in rows of 12, right? So this is the job that I was doing prior, right? So you get a bunch of dudes out, we had a team come out, and then they help me. That's how we can push through these people, train people up, and we get everybody done in a matter of a few weeks. So yeah, here's me. And with the nature of our job, a lot of these guys I've reconnected with. You travel somewhere and you bump into them. I called our command center a couple weeks ago for something, and this guy here, Mike, picked up. I'm like, oh, you're at the command center? Like, hey, yeah. It's kind of a small world. There's only 2,000 DS agents worldwide. So we're a small organization. My understanding is there's more FBI agents in Washington, D.C. than we have worldwide. So it's just how it is. So 2,000, that kind of ebbs and flows, but that's kind of what we're at. Just like a pleasure shot out there in the pyramids in Sudan. Just really beautiful, right? It's a place where there's not really tourism, right? So you go to these pyramids, there's not a fence around it. There's not really people that are taking your tickets, and you just kind of go out there. One time I went out there, and there were people camping out. Like Sudanese people just had a fire. It's kind of neat. This is at dawn. We'd walked over, and really special stuff. A lot of history out there. Okay. A few pictures of this, and then we'll transition into Afghanistan. The idea was to just talk about being a diplomat overseas, right? We have the professional life. We also have our personal life. I always trained a lot of jiu-jitsu. I always liked training Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And so they have Sudanese wrestling in Sudan. And I kind of stood out, right? There's not a lot of white guys hanging out there. And I was very interested in this. I had to drive about an hour away. And eventually they realized that not only was I interested, but I knew a thing or two about wrestling, right? I started to play around with them a little bit after, and someone had the idea, you should compete. We'll put you in the ring. So I was all over that. But that's just another picture. On my free time, on the weekends, I would go out there and wrestle, and I became known as the White Nubian. That was my name. And I was real proud of that. I like that, man. Because it's Nuba wrestling. It's from the Nuba Mountains of Sudan. And I was like, the White Nubian. I like that. So that was the thing. I could talk about that forever. But they would. There's no submissions in their form of wrestling. It's more similar to judo, actually. Whoever you lose if your back hits the ground. So it's really takedown heavy. You're trying to take the person down, and then the crowd would just go absolutely insane. I mean, these people are betting money. I mean, the ring actually goes all the way around. It's just a full circle. And you go in, and somebody hoists you up on their shoulder, and they parade you around the white line, and you like get the crowd hyped. It sounds silly, but you get around, and the people they go crazy. And then you kind of just go at it. They had a referee over here. I never really understood like what he did, but there was a guy. There was a guy in there. He had a whistle. He would blow it from time to time. But growing up, with our wrestling mats, and I mean that is not soft sand. It's very rocky, and each time I wrestled, my feet would be completely destroyed. It was really horrible, actually. Sometimes the entire pads of my toes would be off. So I started to tape my feet up really well. And as I started to go to some practices with people, they would say, you said you have like weak feet. that was the big thing. You have soft feet. You have like white man's feet, man. They said you need to run barefoot. That was like the prescription there. You need to run barefoot and like toughen your feet up. But this is us. They had a little training place, another area. The training facility was just like a dirt lot, right? But everybody would go out there. There's tons of people, and as the I kind of stood out a little bit, right? It would usually attract the crowd, but otherwise there'd be a lot of circles, a lot of guys just kind of drilling and sparring, and then I would go home. I'd be bleeding all over, just with the that soft skin. Made some really wonderful relationships with these people. I just found really wonderful, special relationships, and I won some and lost some of my matches in the ring. I lost some, but I also won some as well. So it's kind of, when you win, they parade you around, and then people give you money, which is everybody. A lot of these guys that's how they make a living, and people would walk up and they take cash, and they slap it against your forehead, and then put it into your hand. So it's the world's nastiest money ever, right? But you smack in your head, and they place it into your hand, and you end up with a big ball of money. That was at the training facility, and I don't know, somebody liked what they saw, and some people started giving me money. It's probably inappropriate for me to be taking their money, but that's how it goes. So that's it. Not all work. There's also some play. That's what I was doing in my free time with Sudan. I was also teaching some. There was a jiu-jitsu school there that was kind of getting off the ground, and I would teach classes there from time to time. The closure of this, at one point, there was some intelligence came down and said that people were likely going to basically assassinate me, and so I had to stop going for a very long time, unfortunately. But there were this is far away from the embassy. This is totally across the bridge, across the Nile, and so you never really knew, right? We'd be having a good time with people, but there's always kind of nefarious actors. So we'd always try to be careful of that. But special times. Okay. So fast forward. I left Sudan. I went back to Paraguay. That was my reward tour out of Paraguay. COVID kind of ruined that, right? There wasn't a lot. I couldn't travel. I couldn't do regional travel. I couldn't barely leave the city. A lot of people were teleworking. So I would go, me and the Marines would go to an empty embassy for the vast majority of my tour, right? Unfortunately, we can't telework, right? The Marines in Post 1, the guards on the border, the police in the streets, right? They have to go to work every day. So we never had that benefit. So that tour came and went, and I went to Afghanistan. Afghanistan has a lot of diplomatic security agents there, right? It's based on the sheer quantity of people there that we're protecting and the missions that are being run. I was only there for about 4 days of normalcy, and then things went sideways, okay? So I barely unpacked, actually. No, I took this. This is actually a video. On my computer, it's a video. But this is at Northgate. So this is during the day when things were calm and very civilized, right? Kind of early on. Right. This is calm. This is as good as it gets by far. It only gets 1,000 times worse, right? As night falls, as all of these people, there's only more and more people packing in there. These people need to be going to the bathroom. They need to be eating. There's children out here. There's just some interesting faces. You've got a car trying to drive through. People were, I don't even know how to describe it, actually. Everyone's just trying to look out for themselves and their family, right? Just like any of us would do, quite frankly, right? In such dire position. Right, so I arrived, eventually we have a camp out by the airport. I went there. At this point, day 5, we're just destroying things, right? I think that was all in the news, right? Everything had to be destroyed as possible. Some things could be packaged up. A lot of things were left behind, unfortunately. But we transitioned there. They kept a small group of people, and our job was to try to get out. It turned into a humanitarian crisis, right? A refugee crisis. We're trying to get as many people as possible. The good news is the State Department got out about 125,000 people, right? For a humanitarian airlift, I don't think that's ever been done in history before. So for that, it's quite remarkable, the amount of air traffic that was going out. and we had shifts running 24/7. So I requested to be on the night shift, so we're at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and I'd usually run until about 8 a.m., so about 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. That worked best for me because I still had jet lag, right? I only been there 4 or 5 days a week, so I was like, I sleep all day anyway. This is great. I'll wake up at 5 p.m. This is perfect. So, yeah, we would go to work. I'd wake up, I'd touch base with the day shift, what was happening, and we would do the best we could to vet these people. There were some openings here at Northgate. People would cycle through. We had consular officers and the DS agents. We would be with them for protection, but we're also we're all verifying the documents together. We were looking for American passports. We were looking for green cards, and we were looking for the yellow embassy badges, right? People that had worked for us. On the side, which I think a lot of people have read about, there were a lot of special people that we're looking for, right? Your friend calls that was in the Army back in the day. He's looking for his interpreter, right? The Bill Gates Foundation had jets running. The Clinton Foundation had jets running. Catholic Relief Services, a lot of people were in there as well, just looking for specific people, their employees, and everybody was doing the best they could, I think is the best way to put it. But you can imagine, for these people that have worked their way to the front of the line, a lot of these people were getting rejected, right? You send them back around. You can imagine they're not very happy and oftentimes not very compliant to do that. So there's also concertina wire here. This terrain we would gain and lose depending on the day, right? What was happening is, as the crowd would amass, some people, what do we used to call it? It's like people are pushing people into the concertina wire, and that would create kind of a man bridge, so to speak, right? And I push you down onto the concertina wire, and then we can walk on top of you to get across. So unfortunately, there were a lot of injuries that were occurring here. And to retake that terrain, to try to push people back, also required a certain level of force, unfortunately. But this is Northgate. I think that was in the paper a lot. I maybe spent half the time there. I spent the other half of the time at Abbeygate. You see a lot of people holding their passports, holding up documentation. They have documentation, or they know somebody, or I used to work. But really, you just have thousands of people just kind of screaming and yelling. They're in the throes of misery, I think. It had to be one at a time. That's the thing. There's no other way to do that. It's just every person gets to look. You might have, in my shift, 5 or 6 consular officers. We try to line up. We create a chute. So the military here, the Marines are helping siphon people through, and then they get sent to us, 5 people. So we're on maybe 5 people at a time, right? You look at it. So there's fake passports. There's fake green cards. You make a decision, right? It's like green light, red light, and you do the best you could. But everybody got to look. Everybody would go through and get a look. So it was time consuming, but doing it 24 hours a day. We do thousands. In my shift, you do thousands per shift, right? So. There was, there was a period. Guidance was shifting periodically, right? There was a period where everybody was to get on the plane. Everyone was to get out. A couple of days of that, we realized, that was a terrible idea, right? Right? And not to get too into that, but there were some things that I think we were trying to figure out. The government was trying to figure out what is the best way to do this and how to deal with this crisis. But there were sometimes it was everybody goes, and then it was the passports, the visas, the yellow badges. Some nights it would be just women and children. But for the most part, what we learned early on is just it's whatever we wanted. That was the thing, right? As the days went on, and you realize it's just kind of like you out there in the trenches. So, right, we just did the best we could. I thought the visas, the passports, and the yellow badges, people that work for us, that seemed to make sense to me, right? So, But a lot of people did get out. 125,000 people is a lot. And a lot of these families have been relocated to North Carolina. My mom and brother live in Asheville. That's my home and record for a number of years. I mean, I think they have 25 families going out there. So a lot of people out there. Dealing with these people too, right? I mean, some people speak excellent English. You do a very quick interview. You know, hey, what are your ties to America? Like, from 2006 to 2015, I worked for General so-and-so, and you know, Special Forces team. We did this and that, and you know, well, my cousin lives in New York. Like, well, we're in New York. We live in this little town called you know. Versus someone that knows absolutely nothing or doesn't speak English, and it's pretty apparent, I think, by asking a couple of questions, right? If people had served as interpreters or had worked for us, or had family here, or any of that. But you really just do the best you could, I think. It is not. This is Northgate. This is Abbeygate. This is where the bomb blew up on the final day, right? This is the Abbeygate, the sewage canal here. Yeah, so the airport is going around, and we had different gates that we were letting people go through. About 3 or 4 gates: Eastgate, Abbeygate, and Northgate. Some gates would be, I don't know how to describe it, would be better than others based on what was happening in the ground, like on the ground. The Taliban were trying to help us. They were trying to help get people through, but it's obviously just very confusing with the documents, right? And that goes back to our narrative changing, what we're looking for, right? That was changing, unfortunately. So that confused a lot of the people that were trying to help us. And the young Marines, right, the soldiers there, man, these people are trying to do the best they can as well. If they see an American passport, you have to pull them out and to grab one of us, right? And we would go in and I'd take them to the airport terminal. So what you have here, there's just a sewage canal here, and then there was a wall. So we maintained the wall. That was our line in the sand that we held. And this is really the main shift that I work. It was usually dark. It was just totally super dark, and there weren't a lot of lights. Some people had cell phones and things of that nature. And it's the same deal as any other gate, right? There's a lot of suffering, a lot of people crying out, and a lot of people trying to show you a passport or a document or calling out your name. But we're there there's Germans, there's Australians, there were some people from New Zealand. Everyone's there looking for their guys. There's people from Scandinavia. Everyone's looking for certain people. The British were there. They were very heavy. So people just grabbing people as best as they could. But that was this is Abbeygate. It's a sewage canal. Yeah. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible. I don't know. It was not good, and days went by and turned into weeks eventually. I mean, it's just a tremendous amount of trash and human waste, and I mean, there's really young people, but there's also very elderly people, right? They're having trouble walking, and they're also in less than desirable circumstances, right? I say that. So Abbeygate, and it's another photograph too. Just walking by, if I'm looking for somebody. One of the things, this piece of paper here says Gunsmoke. Well, one of the things that was happening is people are looking for specific individuals. You'd have a code word, right? It could be, Gunsmoke or pizza, or probably read the articles about the Pineapple Express. Whatever it has, that's how people would locate somebody. But what happened is that other people would learn, right? I look over and you've got this written on your sign. I'm going to write that down too, because maybe I'll get pulled out as well, right? So there's a lot of that, and so a lot of the words that kind of get burned. But this gentleman here, he's got his ID card. That really could be like, an American passport card. But that was typical. When you would approach the wall here into the gate, there's a massive crowd of people all throughout, as far as the eye can see. Just people want to get out, and not everybody's going to get out. That was the reality of it. Okay. No. The biometrics would happen right before you would board the plane. Yep. There was a group of people there. They were taking the biometric data before people would board the plane. And that was the last. Because at this point in time, people have gone, they've gotten out of the city, They bypassed the Taliban checkpoints. They've gotten into the gate. And then they would sit here until one of us would pluck them out. At which point, then you're placed into a line with thousands of people, because these people need to get searched, right? And there's a boatload of people. So they need to be searched. Then eventually a bus would come, and that would drive them, the half mile, 3/4 of a mile to the airport terminal. At which point they would wait in a line again, and then their biometric data would be taken, and they would board a plane. So this is just where I like to think they would be out of harm's way at that point, right? Once you get inside, there's MREs, people were getting food, we had blankets, right? There's a whole humanitarian operation inside was taking place. But this was the kind of the more dangerous area. Just unvetted people, right? That's why the bomb went off there, right? The bomb went off like here, like I say within like 10 meters of where this photograph is taken. No one here is vetted. You have no idea who these people are or what they're carrying with them. And there was the constant ID threat. That ID threat was a known threat. And then the day of, we shut down in the final hours of my shift because they believed it to be confirmed and imminent, right, was the verbiage there. So confirmed and imminent, so we stopped pulling people out the day of the bombing, thankfully, which is why none of us were harmed in that. 24/7. A little over 2 weeks. Yep. At least before the U.S. pulled out entirely. Yep. Yeah, the final thing with our diplomatic mission. No, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And usually, once you're inside too, the gate, it's like something from a movie. You're just walking on trash. Your boot wouldn't connect with the ground, right? It's just trash, discarded clothing. As the threat situation changed, initially people would come in and you could take your bags with you, right? You take your bags. Then it went to dump all of your stuff out, put them into these clear plastic bags, right? So we could see what was in there. People would go through it. And then eventually it got to leave everything, right? And a lot changed with the bombing. After that, everyone drop everything. We'd make exceptions for supplies for children, for babies, and baby formula, things of that nature. But the final days, people were leaving everything. You get the clothes on your back, go get your fingerprints taken, and you can get on the plane and start new. So that was also constantly changing. That kind of went full circle, having everything to nothing. One photograph here. Right, I think this came up in the news as well. Some people were handing babies over, like children over the wall at Northgate from the daylight photograph, and this is also at Abbey Gate. And I don't know. I like the photograph. This is taken by my colleague who took that. What do you do, right, when someone is trying to hand you a baby? I don't know. Yeah. And a lot of these things is kind of decision, like that's for you to decide at the moment. If someone does that to you, I think. So there were a number of, I want to say a couple of hundred children. They're unaccompanied minors, which eventually they were flown out. They went to what we call a lily pad, and they were trying to locate the parents. But obviously very challenging. We had some children inside too, and people weren't sure where the parents were or if they were alive or dead. And it just, that helped add to the struggle and the suffering, I think. But that was just the normal. Was this? Some people, they found their parents. My understanding is that to date, there's still a lot that they're trying to search for. So, I don't know, actually. I could have researched that. The past couple months when I came here, I stopped. I'm not on the distributions anymore, but we had the lily pads were set up in Qatar and Uganda, in Spain and Italy. People were getting flown out to all these different areas, and we're getting processed there, and then going to American military bases throughout the country. So this is a photograph here. This is me right here. This picture is floating around, and then someone saw me and sent it to me. And I was like, oh, thanks. Thanks a lot. That's a cool picture. But this is Abbey Gate. I'd say this is right about where the bombing was. Right, we had our entrance through the gate here. We have a gentleman from Scandinavia here. Right, he's looking for their people. Right, you just showed their flag. It's a lot easier for those people, right? If you're Australian, I mean, some dude with an Australian passport, I mean, it's a little more few and far between. It's a bit harder for the Americans, right? There's so many people. But you can kind of see how we would try to keep people back a little bit. They would erect concertina wire and then have brakes to help funnel people in to where you could pull people out as needed, right? One thing I'll mention that I think I never really read about in the news or anything is the reality is that for every person we would take out, there's probably a dozen people that you need to keep back in. And that created a use of force problem, or a challenge, rather. Right? Which is something that in the chaos here, you find the person you want to get, and then they have their mother here and their brother here. There's 100 other people that want to come up as well, right? And there's no way to do that, right? You prevent them, right? There's no like, please or thank you. Or that's just something I always remember too. And we would be really reluctant. At times, the crowd would be extremely rowdy, right? If we were overrun, like no one's going to get out. So that was the predicament that we dealt with on a daily basis. There were times when the gates would get too violent, we would shut it down and nobody would get out, and we'd focus on a different gate. So that's just the point that I always remember, that I think it wasn't all very so straightforward, right? This guy's getting pulled out. We need troops here to help keep other people back. If they're climbing up, like they need to be pushed back in, right? There's some pieces of just challenge or cruelty, or that's just the reality, right? That was just the reality there. Some of these families that we'd pull up, they might have 24 people that are with them, right? They might have 15 children, and their grandmother and my brother. And early on, I speak from my perspective, I was very enthusiastic to pull as many people as possible out, right? We would basically, I found it worked best just deadlifting people out. You would link arms, right? You just deadlift somebody up and then kind of hold them and then and pivot and take them to safety. Then you could take them and they can point out their family member, right? This is my mother, like that person, that okay, right? Then you just grab that person with the sea of arms, right? Grab that person, pull them up, and then it'd be, that's my brother, right? All right, sometimes we go on and on and on. And so aside from the passports and everything, we would be looking for other interpreters or people that work for the embassy. We had certain teams that we'd helped train over the years, and we were looking for them. But that was what we did, right? A lot of it was I say like an art, not a science. As days went on, like the second week, I became less enthusiastic, right, to do some of that stuff. Sometimes it was tough. People would come up and they wouldn't have their family members, right? Or they would come up and their family member, who you can't find, has the documents. They have their passport, right? That created a conundrum. What do you do? So the reality is they're not going to leave without those documents. And they couldn't loiter here. If we pull people out here, you can kind of set them against the fence until we get the whole family. And then we put them in a line and kind of march them out, put them on a bus and get out of there. But it goes back to those personal questions for people, whatever. Whoever you were there in the moment, if you want to go grab another person out, that's on you. But sometimes people would come up and we would send them back out, right? It seemed the best way for them to get reunited with their family and to find their documents was to go back through, unfortunately, right? So it's good. One of my lessons learned, as I've thought about it over time, we've always been taught that my job is really 95% cerebral and 5% tactical, right? I've always enjoyed working out. I always like being fit, and I like shooting guns. I like all that stuff. But the reality, like 95% of it is cerebral, right? It's like a thinking man's game. this is one of the few moments in my career where it was all physical, right? So all the deadlifting I've done over the years, it really paid off. And the reality was, it was a bunch of strong dudes, a bunch of strong contractors, a bunch of strong Marines. I mean, people to lift these people up, one after one. I mean, going on all night long, and then come back and do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Um, yep. Yeah. I believe in stress inoculation, if you were to ask me. So I've thought about that stuff too. Um, I learned a lot in our tactical unit. We do, we would go to SEER school, just like the Special Operations Forces. We did a lot of reciprocal trainings with the Special Mission Unit Bragg, with SEAL Team 6, all these people. I mean, I think for me, I think stress inoculation is the key there, to not be overwhelmed with that because you've done things like that in training so much. I would even add crazy CrossFit workouts, quite frankly, And there's moments, I mean, how do you train to be carrying body armor and be running around and pulling people and pushing people? And, I don't know. I like to think I kind of trained for it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, I'll be frank. At Abbey Gate, you throw them back in the canal. There's no sugarcoating that. You go back in the canal. At Northgate here, this is Northgate. That initial photo was taken up here, peering down. When we shut down Northgate, that we put these giant bollards, so to speak, and we just shut that down. But Northgate, we had a place you could walk people around, and we had a chute. You could walk people out, and actually, usually they would think that they were going to the freedom, so to speak, but we would redirect them back out the gate. You take a left turn instead of a right, right? So, and that's just being sincere, that's just being honest, right? And that's the reality. There's a finite of resources, a finite of planes and everything, and not everybody was going to get that ticket to the U.S., right? Not everybody, it wouldn't have been appropriate, right? With all the American citizens there and the people that worked for us over the years, past 20 years or so. So I think there's some criticism of that, I think, right, in open source media. Maybe there should have been more focus on getting the American citizens out, over other people. But I just go back to just do the best you can, right? So this is Northgate. People would be coming over those walls, right? You could be up on the ladder. You could pick people up. When we get too out of control, and we'd shut the gate itself, you could just pull people up, right, as needed. If someone was waving a U.S. passport, right, you'd grab them, pull them up, and send them down, and they could walk through, so. All right. At the time, when we began the humanitarian operation, we had already shut down and abandoned the embassy. We were not downtown at all. I think that's vehicles were destroyed, and we were not going downtown. My understanding is that some of the military elements, there's some units that were out there doing that, but as a whole, we were within the. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. They're definitely trying. No, I think I'm a little confused. They're definitely flying people out. People that were trapped at the embassy, and they wanted to go back. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw some of that, and some of the people that I was looking for as favors to other people. Yeah, that was the first hurdle was to get to the airport for a lot of people, and sometimes that took people days, or a week. But yeah, we were not going out to, we were not going beyond the airport compound. No, nope. Yeah, it is what it is. Um, I arrived. I had 4 days. It was pretty normal. Yeah, I was going to the cafeteria. Things are normal. It's very, yeah, it's very abrupt. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. Big military showed up on the second or third day. Yep, yep. That's right. Yep. They had. I mean, I think 72 hours is what happened for big military came. 10th Mountain came in, and um, I was one of the first people to go to the airport. That was actually the scariest point in my career, which is a whole other story, which is basically just like Benghazi all over again. But one of the things that happened, we destroyed a lot of the vehicles, we abandoned a lot of the vehicles, and then all of a sudden we're staying. We're not leaving anymore, right? We're starting this humanitarian uh, event. So it became a free-for-all, right? Which I think is kind of a neat thing. I put these pictures in here. I think this is kind of fun, right? So you just have military guys running around, State Department guys who are claiming vehicles, right? People are hot wiring vehicles. We start stealing vehicles from each other. So you got U.S. Embassy, this is our vehicle. You got the U.K. here. You got Dave's taxi. I mean, this is some dude like spray painting stuff, right? This is my car. And a lot of them we had disabled. And so when they were hot wired, like the doors wouldn't shut properly, and you could start the car with any key or a screwdriver. So one shift we finished, and it was 7:30 in the morning. The sun was coming up, and we're completely filthy and wet with sewage water from Abbey Gate. And you go there, and your car has been stolen, right? So we would walk out. So that was an ongoing theme there, which I just thought that was it's an interesting piece, right? Something you probably wouldn't read about in the newspaper, but there was a severe shortage of vehicles. A lot of that caused by us destroying them and abandoning them right before because we were leaving, and then all of a sudden we were staying. But it worked out well, and it goes back to those relationships with people too. Sometimes you have the Brits like, hey, like, man, that's my car. That's like our, it says U.S. Embassy, and they're like, okay, yeah, sorry. And a couple more hours, they would return it. But that was an ongoing struggle from day to day. So Thor, this is our QRF, the embassy. That's another vehicle there. But you can just see it is paint. On the great photo here, we found a school bus, a little school bus. One of the contractors actually hot wired that, and that became a great tool to transport a lot of people, right? I could put, I think the most I put in this vehicle was 9, a family of 9, and I drove them to the airport. But the school bus was kind of a game changer. And picture, candid picture with Thor painted all over that, and that came into play at night. This is one of the teams that we had. It's called a Spear team. It's a special purpose embassy augmentation group. These are people that are kind of a special forces unit that will train up, right? And they can respond in times of crisis. So we pulled them out. I believe there are 17 of them. And obviously they showed up with their wives. Some of them showed up with children. And cram into the bus, right? And there's an old saying, especially in the military, people say, how many people fit into a Toyota Land Cruiser? Right? The answer is one more, right? So how many people fit into this bus? Like one more. Like everyone's gonna get on this bus. We're not coming back. So get in it. This is a photograph someone else recently just pointed out to me that was published in an article. It was written by a consular officer at Tau, wrote this, and that kind of shows this is a really quiet night. We were just kind of vetting a group of people that were at this camp that people had kind of forgotten about, and the military would line them up. It goes all the way down to this wall. I want to say it was about 10,000 people that our goal was to get through. So what happened, he would be checking IDs. I would be there watching. I could also check IDs. We had someone else over here checking. So that's all. You come, what are your ties to the U.S.? They might have documentation. Here's these people I used to work with, this and that. And you make a split-second decision to green light or red light. Simple. This worked out well because people weren't sure what bus they were getting on, right? There was just two lines of people. So they all got on a bus, and then some people didn't end up where they thought they were going to. Absolutely. Yep. So a lot of things early on. People were showing up with all sorts of stuff, and that was fine, right? As the days went on, as space became an issue, time became an issue. Eventually, it was like, all right, you gotta leave the stuff. You gotta put it in this clear bag. And then the final days, it was drop everything. On the fly. Yeah. Every night we'd wake up. I wake up at like 4:35 p.m. Eat 6 p.m. We'd be back at the gate, and we'd be talking about what we're looking for. If something had come from higher, we're looking for this family, or we're looking for the women's robotics team, or whatever it is. We'd be on the lookout for them, and then we would go to this other gate. Tonight there's these 10,000 people here, this little camp that people forgot about. So get through those people, and we would just work with the Marines and do the best we could. Yes, ma'am. Yes, that would come after. Unfortunately, that would come after we would vet them for the passports. So that was kind of the dangerous piece there. So once we got the people that we wanted, then the military, these young guys would come. They would search them. They would search their bags and all of that. Right. I threw this picture in here just because there was a girl, and I always remember she had a bird. You can't take pets with you on the plane. But this girl, she had a little bird that was the family pet, and I don't know if you can see it, but these young Marines, man, they took care of this bird and it became kind of like a mascot, and they give it little crackers. It's got like food there, and he had like a bottle cap of water. But as the days would go by, the bird was always there. It's kind of its wings were clipped. It was a pet bird, so it couldn't fly. And there was that. There's a little dog that we all named Jafar that was running around, and people started to, it's a little piece of humanity and all of it. And but the reality, right? This is actually at the airport terminal, right? You go inside there, you're getting on a plane shortly thereafter, but you can't take your luggage, right? You can't take your pet. It's also just another tragic piece of that. People are doing the best they could, I think. I put this picture. This is a good friend of mine. We've reconnected over the years. I was bumping into him on trips here and there, but he's from North Carolina. He's from Greensboro. That's someone I was really excited to be working with, and just I just like that picture. 10 years later, we've been working together for 10 years, and so it's good to see familiar faces there. We work really well together. It's also at Abbey Gate. Other relationships here. You can tell he's a German soldier. With his, they got the Flecktarn camouflage. Which I think is kind of neat. The Germans have such unique uniforms. But dealing with all these other international organizations and foreign militaries, right? Everyone's looking for their people, and there was a lot of teamwork there, right? The Australians only had 2 guys that were out there. So you'd say, like, hey, can you grab these people for me? We would help each other out. Became really good friends with a lot of them. This is Dennis from Germany, and we've stayed in touch, and we shared photographs and told stories. So it's just someone that helped me out a lot, and I started to help him out as well. So it was just there's like happy moments, that humanity in it. You're meeting new people and doing really good work, and they're getting out the Germans that they need to get, and we're getting the people that we need to get out as well. Okay, nice little can shot. The final night. Welcome to Kabul, the airport. All right, it's the final night. These are the last 6 diplomatic security agents before we're getting ready to pull out the night shift. Initially at the airport, right, every country was represented, right, and the people were heading out. So this is that's the last flag flying of the last night, the last shift. So we were the last ones out? I think officially, yeah. They tried to do that. Yep. Yeah, the ambassador stayed behind. Like, they made sure like it was like the last plane. Like like we were on a plane and they left like the following morning or something. But yeah, and it was people were definitely pulling out, and you can just see the debris around here. The porta-johns that were set up trying to accommodate all these people, and at this point we're all sick, right? Everyone had a cough, and you kind of stand up all night and in filthy conditions, and it was definitely didn't have the energy that we had 2 weeks before, but yeah, last night, last shift. So that's how it ended. Got on a plane, C-130. Sat around the tarmac for like 14 hours waiting for that to come. There's a lot of miscommunication, even in the end. A lot of logistics, and there was a lot of trouble in general. But eventually it came, and we all just laid down in the plane. Right? There's no seats. There's no nothing. We got on with our rifles and with our kit, and yeah, he's grab a strap. But yeah, just a boatload of people. You just cram people in there, and then flew. We went to Doha. Yeah. Yeah, you're supposed to go to Kuwait City. There's a lot of logistical issues, but people were trying to do the best they could. But we ended up in a different place, and then they weren't sure what to do with us there. We got put up into a hotel, and then 4 hours later, I got woken up, and we were flying out. They found a charter flight with Ethiopian Air. We flew into Dulles. So it was kind of a mess, quite frankly. But I had, that's a good question. Before we started that humanitarian thing, I burned probably 75% of all my personal belongings. So you only got one bag to take with you, and so there's a huge burn pit, this massive burn pit, and so at the time I didn't want people like wearing my stuff, so I burned it. Seems kind of silly now, but I had a lot of my personal items and stuff, and so I burned that stuff, and other stuff was abandoned, and so at this point you just have like a bag and a backpack. The one bag that I took that they palletized and pouched out, they lost that. I didn't see that for like 3 months. Just got back. So it was pretty chaotic, all of it. We weren't sure if we were leaving or we're not or what's happening, but I just go back to, I think people were doing the best they could given the circumstances. So touchdown. This is Gentry Smith. He's also a fellow North Carolinian, all right? I was like, yeah. He's our current director, nice guy. Here's me. We just touched down with a bunch of contractors, just a bunch of dudes that were out there doing our job. We touched down at Dulles Airport. There was a little delegation of DS and some State Department officials there that welcomed us, which I thought was a nice gesture. And then we parted ways, So it's kind of the end, you're kind of there, and that was it. I was put up in a hotel for a couple of months because my tour had ended abruptly. I didn't know where I was going to end up. We had to find a new job, essentially. But some really wonderful people in these pictures. I like to think that the contractors really, also with our military counterparts, these are the people that, they did everything, right? These are the people that just like pulled people out of the gate and pulled people out of North Gate and shuttle people back and forth. There's no other people there to do that job. So it's kind of the unsung heroes, a lot of these guys, right? That there's contractors that are out there. Some of them had been there for many years, knew a whole lot about Afghanistan, knew a lot of people, and they definitely responded very, very well. And a lot of these guys can hotwire cars like I've never seen. It's incredible. It's incredible. There was a female DS agent who was in the flag photograph. Yep, there's one female. As far as the contractor staff, these are all male, and the DS agents, I remember one female. Yeah, a lot of the consular officers were female, and a lot of other people were there. A lot of the military people were female, but from the State Department, contractors were. That was for whatever reason, that was primarily male. I think. Oh, this is man. This is Villa Pant. No, yeah, that's a guy. I won't tell him that. I won't tell him you said that. Yeah, no, no. Yeah, but, okay. So we came back. This is kind of neat. So those of us that were stuck around in D.C., we got to meet the Secretary of State, Secretary Blinken. That was an experience. It was fun. I obviously did not have a suit, right? So I burned that. I threw that away. And at this point, I just had my little backpack, and I told him as such. He asked, what were you doing there? Thanks for your service. I said, I was just pulling people out of the Abbey Gate Canal and over the wall at Northgate. And I apologized for not having a suit. And I'm wearing my Hawaiian shirt because that was the button down that I saved. And I liked it so much, and so I kept the button down. And then they recently they sent me a nice photograph of that and a personally signed letter from him, which once more I thought was a nice gesture. And so that was fun. And then it's kind of dumb because we have our masks on in an official photograph, but what do you do? Yeah. So just to end it, I've got a couple of pictures here. This is a special person here. This name was Zir. This is his brother here. I got contacted by a friend who had another friend who told me he's looking for his old interpreter from about 12 years ago. And I said, yeah, I'll look for him. What he needs to do, he needs to get into I'm working at Abbey Gate the next few days. He needs to get into that gate, right? Once he gets into that gate, he'll know he's in the right space because he will be in about knee-high sewage water, right? That's when he needs to be in contact, right? And I can go find him. What we would do for him, he had my name. He was to yell my name, and I wore a blue chem light on my kit. It's very dark there. So you crack a chem light, and so just one of these little guys. So you just crack a chem light, and I just keep it on the shoulder. So when he would see a blue light, he would yell my name. So these are some of the things that we would do to help find people. This is a friend of a friend. There was congressional interest in this person. He's just done some stuff back in the day, and a lot of people tried to find him. And I happened to get, I think I just got lucky. He made his way into Abbey Gate, and I contacted him. And I could hear the Marines in the background yelling to get back, right? They're always telling people to get back. And so I went out there, and I looked for him. I was able to locate him, thankfully. And so he came down to Woodbridge, Virginia, with his sponsor, right? The young fellow that was looking for him has kind of taken him in as family. And so this is after the fact when we were back in D.C. under happier times. Even though we're all smiling. I pulled him up here, and then we had him. I had him stand here. I asked the nearest Marine here to take a photograph. I call them proof of life photographs. So I'd take a picture with their guy, and then I'd send it to you and say, I found your guy. Then I would drive him to the front step of the airport terminal, right? So I could tell them he's going to be getting on a plane tonight, right? What happens after that will be a journey, but he will not be in Afghanistan anymore. So, but we took him around. We went out. That's at a Wawa. He's drinking the red Slurpee, So it's just more something I like to focus on, just that humanitarian piece, right? A lot of people. This is somebody that some American servicemen were really looking for. He meant a great deal to them. One of these guys says he saved his life back in the day. Just someone that people really wanted to have to come to the U.S. He speaks English. He's going to be bringing his wife and his children here. He'll be petitioning for them in due time. And it's just one of these people that has a lot of what are your ties to America? And this person has a lot. And he grew up working for us, right, interpreting for a whole wide variety of groups and people. So he'll be in his new home. I touched base with them over Christmas. He's out in Montana. They're showing him how to ski. The family's taking him skiing and stuff. And one of the things that I plan on doing with him, he's never been to the ocean. And my family has a little place out in Kitty Hawk. So I said, I'll take you to I'll take you to the ocean, one day. So that's just one thing that we hope to do with him down the road. So it would be challenging, yes. I've read in the newspapers, even like the Asheville Citizen Times was talking about a lot of people are trying to bring over with the K-1, the fiancé visa. I mean, the tricky thing is the families are so large. So a lot of people they might have 24 people. Wazir has 8 children, right, for example, right? So the family structure is a little bit different. And as I told him, I mean, I don't have any kids of my own at this point in time. I mean, like 8 kids, I mean, that's like a lot of eggs to scramble in the morning. It's like, I don't know what, he's lucky because he's got an American family, right, that's sponsoring him, and they're going to take care of him. And his military counterpart has become very successful over the years, working for the U.S. government. And so I think he'll be just fine. But yeah, it'll be a long journey, I think. These people with the visas and getting vetted. I'm optimistic it would work out for a lot of them. So I brought in some of my kit. I just thought it was interesting. One thing is going back to the vehicles. When vehicles were being stolen and they're disappearing, the helmets were disappearing too, right? You just had like a lot of young Marines, a lot of guys running around, and you see a helmet. We had the nice helmets, not the so if you left something around, it would disappear. Same with food, right? If you had like a nice sandwich or something, or a Coke can, I mean, things are just like, it's kind of a Wild West. People were fending for themselves. So I just wrote U.S. Embassy and my last name on the back, just to try to maintain control of that for a little bit. Eventually, I didn't even wear the helmet at all as time went on. But that was that's my presentation for y'all tonight. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, on behalf of Rotary, you get a cup.
Oh, thank you so much.
Don't burn it.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you very much. All right.